This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. I think that Fender should be celebrated as one of the more important, well, the most, to me, important brand that there is. You know, Stratocasters, Telecasters, Deluxe Reverbs. Like, the list goes on in terms of things that are absolutely classic and important to many of us. You know, you might be a Strat lover, you might be a Tele lover, etc. But can you keep track of their lines of guitars, like the range and stuff like that? I'm going to go through in this video sort of their guitars that they make and the lines. Like, are we on American Standard? Is there still an American Standard? What's a made in Japan hybrid? What's that? What is a Vintera 2? Why is it Vintera 2? What happened to the old Vintera? Are we still making Road 1 guitars? Like, there's so much that they're doing in terms of differentiating lines and stuff like that, that I think it's maybe getting a little bit confusing. And if someone who's involved in sort of like, you know, getting involved in watching videos and reading up on some of this stuff and trying to see what's going on, to me it's a bit like, where do you start with Fender? It's confusing, in my opinion, and I think maybe they're just doing too much. Far be it from me to say that anyone else is doing too much. I know I make too many videos. I do apologise for that often, but, you know, it's part of staying in a groove of doing a thing is just to do the thing, and I love playing guitar. I hope some of you stick around for the ride, but anyway, yes, too many different guitars. I did find this really helpful guide from Guitar World written by Richard Blenkinsop. So this is going to explain essentially one way to think about the Fender range. So we've got Fender Player series. So these used to be the entry level into Fender, but before this now we've got Fender Standards, which we know are made in Indonesia. Basically entry level Fender guitars that are built in Ensenada and have like a range of features between traditional and modern. So they're not like reissues or anything. Then you get Vintera 2. So these are sort of more vintage correct or vintage inspired, decade correct, that sort of stuff. So if you're looking for like a 60s, 50s or 70s Strat or Tele, then the Vintera 2 are those sorts of guitars but built in Mexico. That makes sense. Then we got Signature Series, which essentially goes between Mexico and America. So there's a large range, but obviously a signature guitar is just a guitar that is essentially made to someone else's spec, different hardware and stuff like that, right? Different finishes. Okay, then you get Fender Japan. Now I think this could do with a bit of a breakout because there's Fender Japan hybrid as well, and I think we don't really talk about the Fender Japan stuff enough. But these started in the 80s. Then, if you want a Fender American performer, this is the entry level into the American Fender. So this might have been called American Standard in the past. Traditional specs in some ways, some modern specs, but yeah, not anything specific, decade correct or anything like that. Then you get to the Professional 2, which they're calling at this point like a no-frills US-made workhorse. They have some upgrades from like a classic era Strat, so you've got sculpted neck hill, rolled fingerboard edges, and 2-point trems as well, and V-Mod 2 pickups, as well as you get a hard case with these. Fender American Vintage 2 is essentially like the Avery, so these are supposed to be period correct, so you get like specific builds based on a certain year, so you then have like pickups from that year and hardware, as well as the necks being the right profiles and radiuses and all that sort of stuff. So that's the American Vintage. Think of that as like the reissue range but mass produced. Then you get Fender American Ultra. So these are like your modern Fender guitars, which have different contours There's one other thing that I didn't really realise, but like different neck profiles, radiuses, redesigned body and neck contours, locking tuners, noiseless pickups, so like quite a lot of the features, and Ultra Luxe, which I hadn't really heard of. They go stainless steel, maybe that's where you get your locking tuners. And then you've got Fender Custom Shop, which is obviously a whole thing in and of itself. So that's like another shop altogether with loads of different lines. So I think that's one way to start to understand it, where you look at like the range, break it out in this way. So you've got Fender Standard, which is now Indonesia, Fender Player is Mexico, Vintera, Classic Mexico, then you get Signature Series, then you get Fender Japan, which is its own thing, which we don't really talk about much, Fender American Performer, which is like your basic entry into the American-made guitar, American Professional, so that's like your, well, yeah, this is like a more modern-ish Strat, but not quite. Then you get American Vintage, which is reissues. Then you get American Ultra, which is a modern. Yeah, it's a lot. So, I'm here on the Fender site, and at the top here, Mod Shop, Electrics, 3 new things here, web exclusive, basses, Squire. We got lots and lots of stuff. So let's just, if you click electric guitars, and you see there's 206 results. So does this mean there's 206 lines of guitar that they're making? So with standard Strat, standard Tele, standard Strat, HSS, got limited edition Player 2. And we go through American Ultra. So the American Ultra 2, that's a different line. Player 2, maybe we should sort these price low to high. So then we get into the Player series. So Player 2, you've still got the Players up here. Player Lead 2, Player 2 Jazz Masters. So that bit's fairly clear, right? We've got the standard Stratocaster, which is like their entry level. Player 2, which are made in Mexico, and actually have some pretty nice specs on them. But we've now got as well like lots of different variations in terms of pickups and all that sort of stuff here. HSS, Telecasters with 2 humbuckers, limited edition Player, Player 2s, Player with an HSS plus top, Player plus Meteora. So now we're into Player plus territory, which is like rolled fretboard edges was the thing that they had in some better pickups, right? So I think noiseless pickups. Player plus, we've got Nashville Tele, that's quite cool. We're still in Player territory here. Starcaster, Tom DeLonge. Special edition, what's that one then? Then we get into Vintera. So I think Vintera, the idea is this kind of follows on from the Classic series, right? Vintera 2, 7.25 inch radius, U-shaped neck, 70 style Strat pickups. That's Vintera 2. And those ones are sort of like the first reissues that we get, spec towards being reissues. Proper rosewood fretboard, vintage tool frets, C-shaped neck, sheet, yep, you know. Made in Japan hybrid. So made in Japan stuff is then mixed in with this. Buddy Guy Strat, Terra 2s, Jimi Hendrix Strat. What is that? Steve Lacy People Pleaser, Chris Shiflett. So these, I presume, are like Mexican authentic Hendrix, is it? So this is a, yeah, Mexican made sort of signature model. It's interesting. I didn't really even know that existed. Made in Japan hybrids. Not really clear what those are. I think they're like a hybrid specs. That looks kind of weird. 17th anniversary Vintera 2 Aerodynes. So this is another thing they do. More Mexican signatures. Her Strat. Made in Japan. So this is just straightforward made in Japan. This Chrissy Hine Telecaster actually I think is a bit of a sneaky one in the middle of their catalogue. So this is road worn. Do want to check out one of them really. But is it a fairly skinny neck? It's the C shape. Going through and there's just so much variation. It's a bit like, well, they're still making the Brad Paisley. That's a great little guitar. Limited stock apparently. So maybe they're stopping making that. American Performer, going alongside some of these other things. Limited edition road worn. So these are then sort of Mexican Vintera, but then road worn. Vintera road worn. American Professional, which are sort of like the not quite entry. Are they entry? They got rid of the American Standard, didn't they? And then American Vintage 2, which I tried one of those. Those are pretty cool. Those are like your reissue. American Vintage used to be like Avery. American Professional 2. We haven't got to Ultras yet. So where are the Ultras? American Ultra there. And then Ultra is like your more modern sort of stuff, right? But it's just, to me, it seems like an awful lot of variation. Eric Johnson Strat, Rosewood, Eric Johnson Strat Maple, those are pretty cool. We've got some just American sort of signatures going on here. But I think that covers the range basically from Mexico to America. Basically. You have like this Stories collection, like these limited edition things. It's just so much variation. And this is before you even get to like what is the mod shop and customize your own guitar sort of thing. Interesting idea. So that's pretty cool. Do you know what I mean? There's so much variation. Fender custom shops here. Shop by category. Shop by model. Shop by series. So here's the series. American Ultra 2. American Ultra Luxe. American Vintage 2. American Professional 2. American Performer. That's your entry level actually, isn't it? American Performer. Vintera 2 and Player Plus are like the top of the range Mexican. Player Plus. Player 2. That's now like your entry level Mexican. New Standard is now made in Indonesia. Made in Japan, which is not clear what those ones are either necessarily. Artist signature and limited edition. Like, it's so much variation. Is this a good thing? Fender custom shop, and within the custom shop, got different 91 different. It's crazy. The crazy amount of variation. It's very cool in some ways, but in others, it's a bit like, where do you start with all this? I guess you just walk into a guitar shop and just pick one, maybe. Does anyone else think that's a lot of variation for, you know, lines, differentiating, all of that sort of stuff? Seems quite a lot to me.